everyone, in this tutorial I'm going to talk about the past perfect. In this content I'm going to talk about how to form a past perfect and when to use a past perfect. It's best to know that in the English language there are regular verbs and irregular verbs. It's good to know the most common irregular verbs. Look at these sentences. I had went to the shopping mall. They have painted the door brown. As you can see, both of these sentences are in the past perfect tense. And now we will talk about how to form the past perfect. We will use the regular verbs singular. We will use the auxiliary to had plus the past participle, which will put the ed at the end of the verb. For example, I have worked here. You had kissed her. You had cleared the way. She had placed on the floor, and it had rained. As we continue on, we will use the regular verbs by plural. We will use had plus the past participle, which will put the ed at the end of the verb. We had worked late. You had watched the boxing match. They had tailed the donkey. As we continue on, we must pay extra attention to the verbs ending with the e, such as live, close, wipe, etc. We will use the auxiliary to had plus the past participle, which will put the d at the end of the verb, such as he had lived in Chicago, she had closed the doors, we had wiped the table. As we continue on, we must pay extra attention to the verbs ended with a y, especially those preceded by a consonant, such as study, spy, toy, etc. The y becomes an I. For example, she has spied on her brother. They have studied really hard. We had tourists living in the colonies. As we continue on, we will use the irregular verbs. We will use the auxiliary to had plus the past participle, but it has its own unique past perfect form. For example, I had bought that shirt a long time ago, which is to buy. He had built that doghouse with his 2 hands, which is to build. They had ran for a mile, which is to buy. And now we will use it in questions. For regular verbs, which is to had plus the past participle, that we use the ed at the end of the verb. For example, had he talked to her? Had she kicked the ball? Had they worked together on the project? As we continue with the question, but in irregular verbs, we will use the auxiliary to had plus the past participle, but again it has its own unique past perfect. For example, had she lost her job, which is to lose? Had he taken the jeep, which is to take? Had they slept well, which is to sleep? And now we go in negations. For regular verbs, we use had plus not, which we will convert it to hadn't, plus the past participle, which we will put it in ed at the end of the verb, such as she hadn't listened to the teacher, he hadn't closed the door, he hadn't snowed since Thursday. As we continue on in negations, but in irregular verbs, we will use the auxiliary to had plus not, which will change it to hadn't plus the past participle, but again it has its own unique past perfect, such as she hadn't lost her job, hadn't even eaten yet, and they hadn't even built the church. And now we will use it in to use, which is for that to happen in the past, but before something else in the past. I had ran 2 miles before I taken a shower, which tells I had to run 2 miles before I even taken a shower. I decided to buy a new tire after the old one had flattened, which after the old one had flattened, I decided to buy a new tire. Thank you for listening, and I hope this helped you very well.